Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm going to present to you the ultimate optimization hack. All right. In my humble opinion. All right, so dungeon dudes are sitting over there, and you're like, oh, this subclass is going to be better than this subclass, and it'll squeeze out a few more points of damage. Right? I think I got the ultimate optimization hack, okay? And I learned it recently just sitting at the table, and it didn't work. Like, when I tried it, it did not work. But actually, I saw this, it was this glimmer of hope that I'm going to present to you now. And I'm going to continue doing this. All right, so let me explain the situation. All right, so first of all, let's say you want to do something in Dungeons & Dragons. And I've been hearing this term lately, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant to really think about Dungeons & Dragons this way. Are you in a Mother May I game, right? And I was thinking about this and like, oh, Mother, may I do this? Mother, may I do that? Right? Like, and it's asking Dungeon, can I do this? Can I do that? Right? And it's a style of play, right? And there's a lot of players who play this way. Now, I really want to say, like, why am I talking about a player thing, right? Like, this is a thing that you should do as a player. This is the ultimate optimization hack from the player seat, okay? Wait, Scott, what are you talking about, player? You never talk about being a player. You're right. So I am in a Pokey D&D next generation campaign, a Pokemon Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and I'm playing weekly, and it is literally a 6-hour game. It breaks every rule that for me for D&D, like, and the reason I'm there is every single day there's more reasons I'm there, but the thing that got me to go and got me to stay was the Dungeon Master is better than me. And I'll tell you right now, I can count on one hand the number of times that's happened in my life, right? I honestly, I really believe I am a tier 1. I'm a podium Dungeon Master, right? You can debate whether I hold the world's bronze, silver, or gold, but I'm one of the world's best Dungeon Masters. We'll say that flat out, right? And so I do not run across people who are better than me very often. But this Dungeon Master he has done things that I haven't done. One, he has done a better job of making a mixed gender table, right? The table is a mixed gender table. There's men and women at the table. There aren't other genders other than that. We're not that progressive yet, sorry, but we're doing what we can, and generally I realize, mostly men have sat at the table, and actually I do Dungeon Master for a woman pretty regularly in a campaign, but not a weekly campaign the way he's done it. And so he's made this mixed gender table. I do not, there have been some bumps in the road that I've seen, since we started. It was going smooth as glass, and then there was a bit bump, right? And it's tough. It's tough running a mixed gender table, and he does it better than I do. In addition to that, he just has a much higher dedication to conversion, to Dungeons & Dragons conversion. So he takes the world and converts it into Dungeons & Dragons, and he has encyclopedic knowledge of Pokemon and Dungeons & Dragons. And I have encyclopedic knowledge of Dungeons & Dragons from a narrative perspective and Dungeons & Dragons history, right? I don't even have a encyclopedic knowledge of Dungeons & Dragons rules. I do have an encyclopedic knowledge. I know more about anybody in the world than the history of Dungeons & Dragons and the canon of Dungeons & Dragons considered in context, right? There's a lot of guys who have studied Dungeons & Dragons, but I think that I'm ahead of them because their prejudice blinds them to so much. It's ridiculous. How many middle-aged white guys have come and just castigated Lorraine Williams? It's like a hobby now. It's just horrible. So it's really interesting. So here's the hack. Sorry, I got on a little bit of a tangent there. Here's the hack, okay? So basically in this, so I'm playing in this Dungeons & Dragons Pokemon game, and I get these moves, right? And my character is my character then was a Fampy Wizard. That character is already dead. And I've moved on to a Golett named Dremor, right? But my Fampy Wizard, he had these moves, all which are put into Dungeons & Dragons spell, like they're structured like a Dungeons & Dragons spell, right? So we have this, it's set there, and I know I can cast these Pokemon moves that all are converted to Dungeon Dragon spells. But I'm like, I'm a wizard. Can I just cast Web? Can I cast Light? Can I cast, these other things, right? And so I could have, there's an open chat, and I could have just said, Storm Dungeon Master, can I cast Web, right? But I didn't. I was like, ooh, wait, this is important. I want to be able to cast Dungeon Dragon spells in addition to my Pokemon spells. And so I waited until the game, right? And then in the game, I picked up my player's handbook. And by the way, a player's handbook is a very nice, prop, right? And so I got my player's handbook. I'm holding it in my hand, and I say to the Storm Dungeon Master, I cast Web, right? And it transformed it. It wasn't a question, it was a challenge, right? It was saying, I'm doing this, right? You have to pull me back. You have to pull me back, right? I'm not asking for permission. You got to stop me, right? And that's exactly what he did. He's like, no. He's like, you can't do that. And then this is the part why I'm telling you this, right? He's one of the best dungeon masters in the world. He's better than me, right? And he said, wait. He stopped himself, and he's like, your character attempts to cast Web, right? Now, I'm a Fampy, right? I'm going to shoot a web out of my nose? It doesn't make sense, right? And he's like, your character, attempts to do this, but the spell fizzles, right? And it was really interesting because at first he just gave this very academic, no, you only can cast this Pokemon spells. You can't cast the spells that are in the book. But then he realized that he didn't just owe a duty to me. He owed a duty to me, Scott, the player. He also owed a duty to Fampy, Fampy named Fjorn. He owed a duty to my player character, and he owed a duty to the world, right? What happens when the character does something in that world? How does it impact the world? How does it shape it? I didn't get what I wanted, but I made him think, right? And he was like, oh, do I want to disallow this? And he had to tell me no, right? And this is what I love. This is what I love about Dungeons & Dragons, right? A good dungeon master is pained when they say no. They're pained. And that pain was the hot sauce on the taco, right? I liked him having to pull me back and say, no, you don't get more power than I'm going to allow. And then I also really liked just seeing the pain of him having to say no, because one, it told me he was a good dungeon master, right? Bad dungeon masters say no with no regret, right? But a good dungeon master knows when you say no to a player, right, you're squelching the fun, right? And there better be a darn good reason for it, right? And that's another reason why I think this guy he's better than me, right? Because he takes it all very seriously. The other thing I think is really interesting is it's taking a lot of his brain space outside of the game, right? Outside of the session, outside of the campaign, right? So much that I've been thinking about this too is how much time do we live in the world we're in, right? And I realize, for my Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I'm running right now, an Eberron campaign, which was in Kryn for a little while and now it's back to Eberron, I spend a lot of time away from the table in that world thinking, what's going to happen next? What are the non-player characters, the entities? What are they going to do, right? And so this is my hack to you, right? Don't use this for everything. Use it for the stuff you really want, right? If you want something and you want something to work a specific way at the table, calculate it and stick it to your dungeon master, right? Put that virtual dagger in, right? Get it in there, right? And the way you do it is you plan it, and you have good player mechanics, right? I'm taking notes, right? They know I'm engaged in the story. I have my player's handbook, and I have it open to the page, and I'm ready, and I've done my homework, and I say, I'm doing this. You have to pull me back. You have to tell me no. It's not just a question thrown into the thread, right? And save this for the important stuff. Don't just do it for everything, right? So that is my J. Scott Garibay ultimate player hack for optimization. It worked for a lot of things in Dungeons and Dragons, and I think it's better than like trying to squeeze out a few more, damage points on your subclass. Right? It goes straight at the narrative. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.